Okay, so I am going to add one more video on to my introduction to the Affinity Suite interface. I made one video for publisher, one for designer, and one for photo. And I was originally only going to do one for each of those as an interface overview so you knew where to find things. But then I thought, especially as I was getting to the photo, finishing that up, that it might just be handy to add on one more video here. It kind of doesn't matter which of the apps I use, but I'm going to go with Publisher. And I'm just going to bring you through the sequence of opening a file, putting some super simple stuff on it. And if you're already pretty familiar with Affinity, this part may not, well, none of these videos may be particularly useful to you because you probably already know the interface. But, you know, I'm going to put together a basic layout for, how about a to-do sheet? Something real easy, like a daily task thing. Just so that you can see where to find things on the studio panels, a couple of the basic tools, but maybe more importantly, just how to open a file, add stuff to it, save it, turn it into a template file that you can use again and again. Just something so there's a whole beginning to end workflow. I thought that might be helpful for the new people. So let's get started. We're going to go into Publisher. And if you want to challenge yourself, you can go ahead and try to do all these same steps and while I'm doing Publisher, open Designer. You might have to use a couple of different tools or find them in different places, and then do it in Photo. The more you play, the more things will make sense to you, and the more you'll discover stuff. And you'll build muscle memory for where to go and find things. I have so much muscle memory for looking for my layers way over here that it's very challenging to put the layers in the default place. I've tried doing that for some of the early training videos just because that's where it is by default. But I have lots of muscle memory for it over there. And as you keep doing things over and over and over again, you'll build the muscle memory and find yourself finding things without even consciously thinking about it. So here we are on the new screen, you know, file, new, if you don't see it, but it's the same screen is going here. We're going to go to new, and for the purposes of the demo here, let's just go with the demo file format layout that I set up in the earlier video. I don't know why it says DPI 400. I didn't pick up on that before. It doesn't really need to be 400. I have no idea. We'll leave it as CMYK. That'll be fine. May print it out on the printer. It's going to be a to-do list. I could really use one. That's why I picked it. I really could have some organization here. So, create. If I decide I want something different, like as I hit create and it landed, I'm like, I'm probably going to print this on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So maybe I should have done that. So let's do that because I will want to print this. I really do need a to-do list. So document setup. I probably didn't show this to you before, but right here, because I'm on the move tool, document setup. So if you decide to change this later and you're on, I don't know, the shape tool or something, you'll be like, where is it? So you'll have to look for it in one of the menus. I don't even know which menu. It's over here, document setup. You'd think they'd stick it under document, but no, file, document setup. But it's easier to hit the move tool, document setup. Yeah, we'll apply it to the entire document. We're in Publisher, so it wants to know what pages, but I only have one page here. But I want to change this. I can go to the presets, and we could just make it simple and find the one for US letter, which automatically does that. Portrait will be nice. I can look in and see if there's any of the other things here. Prefer linked. We'll switch to embedded. I do linked things, so sometimes you'll see that, but until you understand linking, you probably want to stick with embedded. I don't need facing pages. It's a one-page document. We already did that. Scaling. I like to anchor things in the center. This is when you move things, add things, resize them. Depends on which anchor point. Sometimes the one in the middle is best. It often defaults to being here. You'll know which one is prioritized because the square is bigger. And that's usually the default, but I like it in the middle. We're not going to rescale it. Not technically, because I'm changing the size of the page, but nothing's on it. So color, I'm going to print it, but you know, my printer's going to print it, so it's going to know how to convert RGB, and I'm not going to probably get carried away with colors anyway. So since printers already, home printers already know how to convert RGB to CMYK so they can print things, we can leave it at RGB. I will leave the transparent background on. Don't have to, could give it a color, doesn't matter. And I'll make all my margins 0.5 just so I have some guidance here. That's good, and I don't need bleed for my printer. There we go. So we got that thing there. The checkerboard means it's transparent. If you don't check off transparent background, it'll probably be white or whatever is on your color wheel over here. I like to have it be transparent. If I'm going to export in PNG, which is the format that'll create a pixelated image, but anywhere where there's that checkerboard, it will be transparent, so that can be very helpful. I'm going to print this on paper, it doesn't matter. But I still like transparent. So, but I'm going to, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I have something in the background anyways. It likes to default the color to gray, and I'm just going to move my slider wheel by pushing my mouse and bringing this little dot up in the corner. That'll make it white. It has a black border, but I don't need that for the shape I want. I can leave it if I want. Mostly I just want the solid circle to be white. I'm going to go over to my toolbar and I'm going to find my shapes, which is still defaulting to polygon because I must have used it on a previous time I was in Publisher. And I'm going to, now I can get the rectangle tool, or I could get the rounded rectangle tool. Usually, just so that in the future, if I want to do something different, it's easier to make the changes. I'm going to go with a rounded rectangle tool. Personally, I think they could just do away with the rectangle tool. Just give you this, and then let you pick your corners. So what I did was, so when I put it in, it came in, let me back that up, because if you're new, you might be like, what? What'd she do? Back to the rectangle tool. I've got it selected. If it's different shape, you can pick any shape to do this, but I got the rounded rectangle tool. That's what I picked. Now I bring the mouse over, and I got crosshairs. And they'll, because I have right here, this is snapping. As long as snapping looks like it has a gray background, if I take it off, it's got a white. That means it's not active. Snapping is gray. So now when I use shapes, text, different things, they all want to kind of snap and line themselves up. So if I press the mouse button down and I drag, it'll make my shape. And it'll like to snap, snapping to margins. I could let go here if I wanted. Then I could move to the move tool for a moment, just so I can drag it, and I can bump it up there. I can go down, select that, make that bigger. And then I got these rounded things, and it's so if I go back over to the rounded rectangle and just click on it, there's a little red-orange colored dot here, and if I hover over it, it'll give me a two-sided arrow, and I can press the mouse and drag, and it'll keep going until I let go. When I let go of the mouse, now I've got a rectangle, but I can always round the corners if I want to. You can get to that from the regular rectangle, but I don't know, it's just easier doing it this way. So put out a rounded rectangle or a rectangle, your choice, on here. And just to keep it from sliding all over the place as we add more things on top of it, hover over here till you see a lock, toggle lock, and just click that. It'll lock that in place. You'll get little X's up in the corners, and that's just so we don't drag it out of place as we put more things on it. You can still change the color, so say I wanted to make it yellow or any color on the color wheel, I'll do that. If I want to make it a pale color, I can. Anything at the top is white, anything down here is black. These are shades of gray, and then these are shades of the color. If your wheel looks different than mine, go up to the hamburger menu. You'll get options. There's a slider, boxes, tint, which isn't used too often, or a wheel. And if you're on the wheel, you can have a choice of square or triangle. And square is new in version 2. But if you're on one of the others, I'm on wheel with square. And so that's how you get to look like mine. And then you can slide the colors around the outer side or fine-tune for colors here between shades of gray or the color you have selected on the outer ring. But I'm just going to leave it white because my paper is white and I don't want to use up all the ink. So let's see. So then what we can do next is we're going to just kind of work with some shapes here. I might, for this one, since I want to lay out some squares. Now, some of the things I'm going to do as you learn more skills, you might want to do some of these steps using a table tool. But the table tool, which you saw the preview of that right here, I can put that down, but I'm just trying to make this basic. It is actually much nicer to use a table tool, but the table tool doesn't work the way it does in PowerPoint, and so we got to build up some skills so you can comprehend this, and then we'll do things with the tables. And there's a lot of cool things you can do with the tables, but suffice it to say it's just not the same as PowerPoint. I actually do prefer PowerPoint's implementation, but in Affinity the table tool also does some things that are way beyond what PowerPoint is ever capable of, and for that it actually becomes harder to use if you want it for simple stuff. Get rid of it. If you've played with it, you can play with it. Certainly do play. You'll learn things by playing. To delete it, go back to the Move tool. So you have it there. Hit the Delete key. Get rid of it. Let's go back over here and let's pick out the Rectangle tool. I'm not going to bother with having rounded ones, but I do like rounded for another reason. But let's see, I want a to-do list, so I'm going to put out something like this. Design your to-do list the way your brain would like a to-do list. So many ways we can do that, and isn't that why we make things that are PLR to sell to people? So I drew it out just like I did the other one, but this time I made it smaller. It's white on white, so if I let go, it looks like it's not there. This is also why you want to have your layers panel over on the left, so when you let go of something, you go, well, why didn't it keep it? It kept it. It's just white on white, so you can quickly grab it on the layers panel. Incidentally, we're in Publisher, so there is a Pages panel over here, but I only have one page going on. We'll get to that. So, layers, rectangle. Probably would help if we could see the thing, so I'm going to go back and put the stroke on it, which I want it to be black. And then I want to look at this one's swatches, this one's stroke. And I just want to make sure that I actually have a stroke. If I do this, doesn't matter what the color is over here. I could have it black, but if the stroke has the little symbol there with the X, and that's the gray, it's not putting a stroke on it. You can also see that width is also 0. But I want to see this outline here, so that 0.2 will give a very thin outline. if I want it to be greater, if I just drag this up now, it's not going to work. I need to make sure that I'm in my layers panel and it's blue. That means I've selected it. Now I can slide this up. That's probably way too thick. But maybe I want something. Oh, well, maybe I'll leave it at 1. I did manage to go straight to 1. That's probably fine. I can change it later. It's often useful when you're doing stroke to also, it'd be nice if this were default, scale with object. That way if I resize it, well, this might not be the best example, but some things when you resize it, you want it to stay in proportion, especially if you have several objects that you're doing together. This one, maybe not. Maybe I will undo that. But there'll be times where you want to make sure you're doing scale with object. I'm going to put this back to 1. Now, I probably want several of these little boxes. I'm thinking a weekly to-do, so I probably want 7 of them. So one thing I can do is I could do right-click and do copy. Or I could go over to the layers panel. Now the reason why having it right where you can see it is helpful. Right click and I could just, instead of doing copy and then paste, I could just do duplicate. It'll put 2 up there. They look the same, but they're on top of each other. But if I slide it down, got it there. The other thing you can do is you can do Control J on your keyboard. So if I hit Control J, it'll make a duplicate, but it's remembered that I slid it down. So over in Transform, it's keeping track of X and Y coordinates for you. And because it knew I slid the second copy, the duplicate, down so many pixels straight down, it figured when I did Control J, it would just make another one using that same slide function. So now I can hit Control J and get several of them. How many do I have here? 7. We'll do 1 for extra, 1 for each day of the week, and some a note box or something. So now I've got all of them, but I want to kind of stretch them out. So I can take my mouse. I'm on the Move tool up there in the corner, and I'm dragging down. I select them all, and as long as I've got them completely surrounded and let go, it'll select them all. Now they're all selected at the same time. Another way to do it, if you don't have them selected, is go over to your Layers panel, select the top one, hold your Shift key down, and hit the bottom one. And that's another way. Does the same thing. I'll do it both ways. Sometimes it's easier to pick them out of the Layers panel if you have a lot of stuff and it's just hard to get the mouse around it all, because you have to make sure you've fully captured what you want and you didn't get things you didn't want. So as you get more complex designs, that can be tricky. Sometimes it's easier to go over here and get things through the Layers panel. Now, if I go here, I can stretch this down and it'll resize them. If I want to make them wider, I can do that. Narrower. Actually, for what I want, I don't want them too wide. I want them narrow. I want 1 for each day of the week, but that's not really my style of planning, is to put things on a day. It's more like I want to accomplish all of this stuff all in 1 entire week. Some of my friends are like, you can't even do all of that in 1 week. Nobody can. I think I can. I always don't manage to do it, but it's just, I think I should be able to do lots of things in 1 week. Anyways, but I like a list. And then I'll decide what day I'm doing on as I work through the week. So I don't need to plan it out to the day. So I've got that, plus an extra box for maybe notes, or maybe I'll put a quote down there. Or leave it as a doodle spot. I don't know yet. But those are rectangles. That shows you how to draw a rectangle, how to duplicate it in more than one way, and how to select them all, stretch them all out, and then, because I'd like to keep them together, I'm going to group them. So up here is group. You can also do Control G. Control G will group them, or you can hit the button. If you don't see the group thing here because you've got them selected and are doing something else, If you go under the layer menu, you can also find it right here. So sometimes when you're doing things, you want to group it, but you're not really on the right thing to show it on the menu. I mean the context toolbar, so you go into the menu, or you just do Control-G. At some point, it might be a good idea to label these. So we'll call them daily boxes, I guess I'll call them. So get in the habit of trying to rename your groups when you can. And you can also rename the individual items here. These all can be renamed. Then, here's the pen tool. Let me play with the pen tool for a minute. I want to make a lined list. The way you do the pen tool is you select that there, make sure you've got some kind of stroke, which is also stroke over here. This and this are the same. Except up here in the context toolbar, you get a whole bunch more options, which I won't go into all of them for this quick demo. But suffice it to say, the pen tool can do a whole lot more than make some lines for writing your to-do items. But we've got it selected. It has a stroke. It's black. It's not white, so we can see it. And then you're going to press the mouse button down. It's going to put one there. Then you're going to come over here. And I think I always have to play with this yet. So if you hit the Shift key, before you click again, it'll ensure that your line is perfectly horizontal. And then you're going to go here and you're going to click again. And if you double click on it, that should end it, so when you go to the next line, you're not, see, now it's got a new one. But if I were to go over and I click this, and then I went over here, I now have lines. But if I double click it and it no longer is solid, it's now, just play around with the pen tool. You can make all sorts of shapes. So I don't need all those, but if I want to get rid of them, go over here, select them all, make sure they're fully enclosed, select them, delete. Go back to the pen tool. Put the next line out. It doesn't matter too much on the spacing. Hold the Shift key, go over, double click it, new one. Now technically I don't need to keep making lines like this, but I'm asking you to do it so you can practice using the pen. To click, double click, to end it. The other thing you can do when you don't want to spend forever is make a couple of them. Select them all. Well, the other thing to make sure of too, it probably did this because of the snapping feature, but we can double check and make sure that it's not going to have a height because it's a line, but the width. Make sure the width on them all is actually the same. And they are, because I had snapping on. So they're all the same. If I want to make them all narrower now that I've collected them together, you can see it change up here. If I want them to all be exactly, I don't know, 4.4 inches long, I can be precise about it. And I can just drag it to snap it to the edge. When I did that, it's anchored up here. If I had wanted to make them longer and I don't want to have to reposition them, I want to make them longer, but I'd like them to go towards the left so I can make my anchor point over here. And now if I make them like 4.8, it'll spread them out that way. That's a little longer than I need, but 4.6. So it's adjusting them, but it's using the edge as its reference point. But now I've got those ones selected. They're called curves. That's what the pen tool makes, is curves. But now I could go over here and I can duplicate them, slide them down, and if I do Control J, it does what it did with the boxes. Now they may not be in all the greatest order over there, but I'm not going to worry about it for the purpose of this project. Now I've selected them all. I can group them, and just to tidy it up, slide them with the mouse up there. And maybe I want it so it looks a little more, I'm probably not going to get anything perfectly. Oh, the other thing I can double check too. Now probably I need to go in here and select them. I'm going to just take the top one, go down to the bottom, Shift, click the bottom one, because I want to get them individually, not grab it as the group. This will make more sense as you're going along. Sometimes you can do it at the group level for what I'm going to do. Sometimes you got to just pick all the things. But I'm going to go over here and do alignment. So this can be great. If your lines weren't perfectly lined up, you could line them up to the left. They're already lined up to the left, but then you can also center them, do all these things. And then there's spacing vertically. And I think they're probably already, nope, they weren't. So when I clicked on that, I don't know if you caught it, there was a slight shift. So they weren't perfectly lined up vertically, but now they are. So sometimes things will look visually lined up, but they're not actually mathematically lined up. But that's how you can do it. You can play around with these settings. When you're done with that, you can just get rid of it. And if I slide this around, yeah, see, I still don't have quite enough lines. I can't quite make it look like there's so many, but that's good. Right there's good. I'm just going for approximate right now. So that's how to make shapes and lines, how to put strokes on them. And then let's throw in some text. Now I had mentioned that there's a frame text tool and a artistic text tool. And I probably should go into my settings because I like to have the artistic text tool on the top and the frame one on the bottom, and I got them in reverse. I'm still tweaking my menus. When they moved us from version 110 into 2, they didn't, keep my settings. Of course, they overhauled the tools, so that's probably why. But so I'm still trying to fine tune these, and you will too. So I'll probably flip those. But right now I want the artistic text tool. And what you'll get is a letter A. If I was on the frame text tool, I would get the letter T. So A for artistic. They're both text, but A is the artistic text. And then you're going to get, wants to snap, that's why it keeps turning yellow, green, blue. A little crosshairs. And I'm just going to drag it out. It's going to make a letter, but when I let it go, it disappears and I get a box. So this week's, this is too big, tasks. But that's all right, because it's an artistic text tool, which makes it easy. So I just slid it to kind of snap it into the corner. Take this corner, drag, and get the snapping to work for me. Probably should have a apostrophe there. There. Now, make that more interesting. I'm just going to kind of double or triple click on it to select it, or I could drag it over. And I have, like, you're about to see my enormous collection of fonts. I have some 3,000 fonts on here. It's insane. But one thing that's nice about Affinity, although because of my enormous collection of fonts, I have a suggestion for them, but I can put, there's a little heart, just like when we were creating presets or going through the ones that they supply. You can put little hearts next to it. That actually is a nice font there, almost better. I haven't used that one before, I don't think. It might be a new one. But I can put a little heart next to it. I'll be like, oh, that's cool. And usually when I get started, I'll kind of look through which fonts I've installed and what I like. This is one I like a lot. And they didn't keep all my favorites when they imported all my fonts, so I have to go refavorite them all. So Amaranth is one I've used a bunch. Most of these are Google fonts, or they're from Creative Fabrica. So if you see something you like, go to Creative Fabrica or Google. It's probably one of those. But as I heart them, they'll go to my favorites. So I have gotten some of them put in here. And you can hover over and you can see what looks good. Ask Why is one I like using a lot. Audrey Tatum. What was the one I just did? Almost Better. I'm going to go with that one. That's something I added recently. So I'm just going to click on it. And with the thing, not only can you rescale it this way. Oops. My PC is trying to do something here, and so it keeps undoing my selection. Try it again. Not only can I resize it, because this is the artistic text tool, and if you want to slide it down, because right now it's activated, I can tell because it's there. It's not in a move position, but if you hover, you'll see this heavier two-way double line, kind of the icon changes. So when it's heavier with arrows in all directions, then you're actually triggering the move function. Otherwise, you're in text editing. But the thing you can do too is you can shrink it up this way, but you can really start to modify it. It still knows it's text. If you go here and you hover and you see one arrow going one way and one going the other, that's the shearing, so you can stretch things this way and that. So if you want something to have italics and the font didn't come with italics, that's one way to fake it. Or if you want it to lean backwards, you can also affect this by going into transform. It's this thing here. Actually, I'm not sure this is text. It may, yeah, no, it does do it. Sometimes the text things you have to be over in the character stuff. But you can do that. You can go to text and have it do reapply base styles. But if you do reapply base styles, it will get rid of your font that you chose and go back to like Arial or whatever your computer's default is. So only do that if you've gotten things really out of sorts. Probably somewhere in here it will tell me how much I stretched and so on, that part. I wouldn't look at this, that's not going to be accurate, but it's probably somewhere in the character settings. But then I can put in, this time I want to do a frame text tool. So this time I've got the T, and this time when I put it out, I get a box. But this one's different. It has these little triangles, which I'll get into what those do later. They're for layouts in Publisher, for linking boxes together for text flow. But we just want some text. But this one isn't going to resize. This is really like a text thing. So it'd probably be easier to see if we made the font a little larger. Let's try 30. And I'm just going to put for the week of, that would be good enough. But this one is a box. So if I do this, it's going to do that. It's not contouring to the shape of my box here. That's what a frame text tool does. It's in the frame. So that's like for bodies of text. If you were writing a book, one might be your, this one could be the title, the chapter title, and then this is like the paragraph stuff. But you might like that you're always using artistic text tool to do your layouts. There's no reason why I have to do a frame text tool for this part. I could do an artistic text tool, but just to show you the differences. Because on this one, then you've got things like line spacing, and you can put bullets in, and you can, do things you are familiar with doing in like Microsoft Word, or what's the one that's for the Mac users? It's not Keynote, that's your PowerPoint one. Pages, Microsoft Pages. So yeah, so these are all the things you're used to using there. And this one, I don't think there's a shearing thing. Yeah, so when you hover over it, oops, there's no, oh, there it goes. Oh, you can do it there too. So you can shear it and stuff. It's just it won't resize when you change the shape of the frame. And there's more things you can do with the frames, because there's a whole thing on text frame. You can do fill colors, and you can put an outline on it, and you can do some other stuff. So, but this probably is a little bigger than what I need. So I'm going to get this down to 24. Yeah, that looks good. It doesn't matter if I shrink it, because the frame doesn't get printed or saved when it goes to PDF. So, but there's that. If I go up here, this thing that looks like a windshield wiper is your preview mode. If I want to see what it looks like without my guidelines, I can turn that off, and that's what actually gets printed on the paper. So that's the preview mode is turned off. So we can turn it on for guides and turn it off, toggle that back and forth. The only other thing I would like to do, we'll do it with Artistic Text Tool, is put some days of the week on here. Yes, I'm in America, but I am going to do a Monday start, because my work day, well, my work day is like every day. Family doesn't like that, but I like to work. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I just use 3 letters because they all look more uniform. It's just me. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I don't know what I'll use that for, but I can decide when I'm using my document. Now, I probably have them pretty close to lined up just because I have snapping on, but now I'm going to go use my move tool in order to select them, and I can go grab all of them. It's not going to grab the boxes because I haven't fully enclosed. If I grab this far out, I'll get the boxes with it, but I only want the days of the week. So you have to fully encompass the thing you want when you're dragging and selecting in order to capture it. If you don't capture all of it, like if I get over here, you can see I'm missing some of them, and I've got like Friday now, because it has a blue line, and then I get so I have to get them all. Now they're all selected. I will group them together. Notice how group isn't up here. Oh, it is. It's way over here. Now I can group them. And I could move them around. I could also make them smaller. But they're not really lining up with the corners of my boxes, so that's kind of an issue. So I might want to go in here, and they're not even in order, but I can use this to get some anchoring. I just want to anchor them to the corners of my boxes right now. So there's probably a quicker way to do this, but Friday. Just grab them here, Friday and Wednesday. That's good. They're really tucked up in the corner, but that's all right, because I'm going to, now that I've got them lined up that way, I'm just going to bring them. Now here's the other thing. Instead of trying to do it with the mouse, or even with that, I can use the arrows on, they're all selected as a group. The arrows on my keyboard, so if I use the arrows on my keyboard and hit the thing there, it'll just go over a couple, 1 pixel at a time, and then down. Move them all. That's kind of easier than using the mouse. You could also try to do it with transform, but that's good. And there we have it. Now if I think, I don't really want to use the same font, I can go back to the Artistic Text tool, make sure I'm selecting it, pick a different font. what's this one? This one looks kind of like it. Oops, it didn't do it. So what I need to do, sometimes when you do things at a group level, it just doesn't apply it. It applies it to the group, but not the individual elements. There are some things you can click to change that, but I'm just going to grab them. I did that down to the bottom. Shift key grabs them all. If you don't want to grab all, say I only wanted to change a couple of them, then you go over here, you select it in the layers, and then you hit the control key. Then you can jump around. But if you want all of them, use the shift key. Now, what about that? That looks very similar. It's almost like the same font. What are in my favorites? Amaranth. We'll go with Amaranth. We'll go with Amaranth. Yeah, that looks better. And there's a ton more we could do, but I think I'll leave it at that. I've got the to-do list I need. I might make this just a little bit smaller. Oh, see, it's not an artistic text, so... Oh, one more thing. Since I'm thinking it's artistic text tool, but it's not. Here's a handy thing that they added in version 2. Go to text, and where is it? Where is it? I'm probably just overlooking it. Maybe I have to, maybe it's in layer. Ah, it's in layer. Convert to art text. You'd think it would be under text, but it's actually under layer because it wants to convert a layer from one thing to another. Now it's actually artistic text, so I can change it that way. So that's handy to know. And that looks good. We could do a whole lot more. We could embellish it with graphics and all that, but I just want to give you something where you can see where you look for stuff, where you look for stroke for the boxes. We didn't get into effects, but we didn't get into swatches. You had a little preview of the color wheel. It's black and white. I could make this a different color. Red. Green. Teal color. Play around with that. That's good. But you can play around, make things different colors. There's more and more color things. You got a view of transform. You know there's something we can do with paragraphs, but we didn't get into that. Or character or text frame. But transform, color, stroke, those are things that we used, and then we got familiar with layers. We didn't do too much with pages because it's just a one-page document, but as we would do more pages and maybe turn this into a entire planner, we would add more pages. We might play around with master pages, which are phenomenal, and they go way beyond PowerPoint. If you are used to master pages in PowerPoint, PowerPoint is too simple. Master pages and Affinity is the way to go. But then you get to use some of the tools along here. Final thing we want to do is we want to save it. You can save or save as, because it's never been named, so either one will do. We're going to do this as demo for interface workflow. Boop. And then I can save it. I'll call it an AF pub. I could save it as a template. I'm going to show you how to do that too. But this one will do AF pub. So there's a copy of it. If I want to export it as a PDF, it'll give me a preview. I can decide if I am going to flatten it or do any of these things. Some of this might be from when I was doing the KDP stuff before, but if I flatten it, it'll be a smaller file. So we'll export it, or it should be a small file. It's just going back to where I put it there. That's good enough. Save that. And if I want to make it into a template, I can export as template. And I can go put it in here. And now it says AF template. And the benefit of having AF template is it'll bring it up exactly the way it was before. But when I open it next time, I won't be able to overwrite this one. I'll get to do whatever I want to it, but when I go to save it, it'll require that I give it a new name, unless I tell it to save as a template and then go overwrite the template file. So if you have to update a template file, you have to do it as a save as or export as a template. And then go to where the template is and then tell it to overwrite it. But otherwise, when you do save or save as, when you open it as a template file, it won't have a name and you'll have to give it a name. So that can be quite handy, and it might be a great way to deliver products to your customers, to your buyers, so that they never overwrite their original file, or give them one that's, AF pub plus AF template, so they always have a copy that doesn't get messed up. But I've now saved it, and I can go open the file and print it off to my printer, and then I can maybe start organizing myself better, because now I have a to-do list in a format I like. So, and if I don't like it, after I play with it, my brain says, it's not working for me. Hey, we know how to design more of them. I'll just try again. And then I'll have more templates, and I'll share them with people, and you can buy them and that kind of thing. Or I put them in a KDP book or something. We'll see. Anyways, I think that covers it. You now know how to make a simple template, and I'll add this to the collection, but just keep playing, and let me know if I overlooked anything and you really want to know. We'll add on little mini tutorials to go with the project guided projects that we do once a month. And don't forget, you can always submit suggestions for topics and questions that you have using the Google form. You can email me too, but the Google form is great because then it puts everybody's questions and suggestions in one place, and I can just go look for everything all in one place rather than hunting through all of the emails or trying to track them another way. They're just all put together nicely by Google in the form. So I am going to sign off and get this uploaded so you can watch it. All right, thanks.